analyst, former Cowboys safety Darren Woodson. And Darren, you heard Gregg Williams' speech. What was your reaction to it?
It sounded like 95% of what goes on in the NFL on a Saturday going into a big game. Listen, I think we need to put this in context, especially about what's going on here. Gregg Williams was giving a speech in which he's going into a playoff game. Their season could be the finality to that season, so he's getting his team ramped up. And there were some things that came out of his mouth that most coaches say around the league. That's a given. It's the norm around the NFL. But at the same time, I think where he went overboard is when he started naming individual names. And guys like Michael Crabtree with the ACL and going after guys with head injuries and whatnot. I think he got specific in that way. And that was the only thing, for me, that was 95% of what he said. That's the only thing that I saw that really bothered me was when he talked about Crabtree's ACL.
You just said that most of that was normal. What was normal in that speech that we just heard?
Well, the violence, about being controlled violence. And when you're in that locker room atmosphere, and especially when it's a big game, you're going into that game, your coach is going to get you riled up. It could be a coach, it may be a player, but there's going to be that rah-rah speech, what we used to call the Braveheart speech, in which you're going out there, you're trying to get amped up, and you have this mindset of, we got to play in a violent way, we got to play in an aggressive way, we got to be intimidators, and that's what you heard out of Gregg Williams in that speech. Now, people on the outside don't understand that. People on the inside, the guys that are football players and have been in that culture, understand those words aren't always taken literally. It's just words that he's saying to get you ramped up. But when he started saying things about an individual, especially when he went on to the Michael Crabtree and the ACL, that was something that I really couldn't get my hands around.
You just made a huge point. Folks outside that don't realize the culture that goes on in a locker room, they hear this and They think, what the heck is going on in this league? Have you ever heard a coach, though, in your experience, mention specific players?
No, not specific players. I've never been in a situation where it's specific players. Now, we've always looked at the injury list, and we've known the guys who were banged up throughout a game or the week before. And you don't want to target that guy, but you may want to test him. If the guy's a shoulder injury, well, you're going to hit him in a certain area. You're going to try to test him to see if he's feeling pretty good.
And what are conversations like that, though, Darren? I mean, how does that work? How do you learn about that? Are you following it?
You just know it. You just know it throughout the week that a guy's banged up. You may know that a quarterback took a serious shoulder injury. You may watch it on ESPN, but it spreads like it's viral when it gets in the locker room and you start talking about a certain guy with an injury. You want to test him. It's not targeting him. It's just testing the fact that he's a little banged up. Now, targeting to me is always when you go after a guy. He doesn't have an injury, but you're targeting an ACL, and you're trying to actually end his career, injure him, and mangle him in some certain way. Testing a guy and then trying to intimidate someone is totally different, and that's what this league is about. It's about intimidation. It's about your real estate, owning your real estate, and understanding that you got to play with a controlled violence. And I think that's what Gregg Williams, for the most part, was saying until he starts talking about Crabtree and the ACL.
Do you think this is all blown out of proportion?
I don't know if we can say it's blown out of proportion. I think it's what we hear on a daily basis as an NFL football team. You hear that kind of rhetoric all the time. You don't take it for what it is. It is what it is. The words come out of his mouth. But when you watch those games, the New Orleans Saints weren't targeting guys' ACLs. They weren't going after Alex Smith and hitting them in the chin. I mean, those words were a matter of fact of, this is how we want to play. This is how we want to play the game, but it wasn't taken literal. And you turn on the film, you'll see that they weren't
motivating the players.
NFL analyst Darren Woodson, we really appreciate your insight.